Hello, I'm Quinn Keon.
And I'm Rich Smith, and this is
Real Hunting. Well, hey guys, we're hanging out at the campground here over in the thumb of Michigan, waiting for the 30th annual Great Lakes Bowfishing Championship. We're going to start shooting that tomorrow morning, and we've got some good daylight here, so I thought it might be kind of fun if we made a quick video and tried to answer some of the questions, commonly asked questions or suggestions that we get thrown our way with some of the other bowfishing video that we've been doing. So I typed up a list of questions here and thought we'd get at it. So, number one question we get asked, why don't you eat the fish? Well, for the most part, the fish that we're shooting are carp. And these carp are not clean enough to eat. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cite the Michigan Fish Advisory Guide here and show you a couple things. Over here on this side of the page, there's a list of fish from cleanest to dirtiest, and the last fish on this list is carp. On page 20 and 21 of the Fish Advisory Guide, Saginaw Bay, Lake Huron, that's where we're at right now. Carp catfish says contain PCBs and dioxins, and the whole line all the way across here, see, is diamonds. And diamonds in the key says do not eat these fish. Some of the other things in the key say 1 meal per month, 1 meal per week, 6 meals per year. Do not eat these fish. That's what it says for carp, so that's why we don't eat them. It's unfortunate, I should note, that as outdoorsmen, we respect nature. It's very unfortunate that we've had these chemical companies come into existence and be right on the waterways here in this state. But ultimately, those chemical companies have polluted the water that's flown all the way out here to the bay, and big business has kept it so that nature cannot thrive in the way it was meant to. So, we don't eat the carp. Next question. What bows do you use? You want to jump in on this one?
Sure. For me, it was just what I had laying around the garage, an extra bow. When I first heard about bow fishing, Quinn was telling me about that. I thought, well, I better not take my good bow out that I use for deer hunting. So I had this PSE sitting in the garage. I wasn't doing anything with it anyway, so I decided to put a reel seat and a Zebco 808 on there for fishing. So that's the only reason I chose this bow, not specifically because of the brand it was, but I had it sitting around and thought I ought to use it.
Yep, most of the bows that I've owned have been PSE bows, and that's just because that's what I found that I like to shoot. But we're using PSEs. There's lots of bows out there, lots of bows manufactured specifically for bow fishing now. If you have the money to look at those, great. For those of you who don't, there's lots of used equipment out there. Your gear is going to get beat up when you bow fish. It's going to get covered in dirt, water, fish slime, blood, eggs, all that. So find a used bow and take it out and have fun. That's what it's all about. What draw weight do you shoot?
Typically with this one, I'll start out with 50 pounds, but it really it's dependent about how deep the fish are. Usually if they're up close to the surface, about a foot deep, and they're rolling, 50 pounds is great. You don't need anything more than that. But if you're shooting about 2, 3, 4 feet deep, then you're going to want to crank that up just a little bit further. I remember last year we were into some deep fish and we got up to 60 pounds on our bow. So
yeah, probably 4 feet down.
Yeah.
We were having to shoot 60 because we weren't punching through them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my answer is the same as Rich. I start at 50. If you got them on the surface, 30, 40, you can even make that work. So all depends on the water depth. Rich, trying to choose an arrow rest. Which arrow rest should I choose? What are you using?
Well, I started out with a Muzzy roller rest, and then I used that for a couple of years, I think. And then I decided I would try something that doesn't fall off as often for me, because I'm always doing crazy stuff in the boat and you never know which angle I'm at. So I found this quick draw, and this looked like it would work for me, and I've been using that for 2 years now, and it's been great for what I use it for. So
I'm also shooting a quick draw rest for the purpose of what Rich just noted, that when the arrow is inside of the cage here on the rest, it cannot fall out. There's a lot of times where we've got a lot of body motion and we're spinning from side to side while drawing on a fish, and a lot of times that arrow would pull off of the other rest. So that's my favorite rest. On my backup bow, I've got the less expensive Muzzy fish hook. It's a plastic rest, but again, the arrow can't fall off. I've actually got 2 of these on bows, and I'm pretty happy with them so far. For years, I just shot my Hunter Supreme, that Golden Futura Hunter Supreme, and I just stiffened it up with a piece of metal. Another method that we've done is we've taken an old TM Hunter, and the TM Hunter has a spring in it, but if you take a little zip tie, you can zip tie that thing and make it rigid to support one of these heavy fiberglass arrows. You need a different rest than your deer hunting bow for these heavy fiberglass fish arrows. Your other rest may not support it. So that's what we're shooting. Our favorite is a quick draw right now. So what arrows and points are the best, Rich?
Well, there's a plethora of tips out there to choose from. I mean, a substantial amount. There's quite a few. When I first started, I started out with a Muzzy tip, and you have to spin the tip on this to get the blades about 2 turns, to get the barbs to go backwards and pull out of the fish. About 2 years ago, I come across a penetrator, and I thought the design was great, the concept, because with these you have to punch all the way through the fish in order to turn the tip, get the barb backwards. Now with the penetrator, it's split in the middle, so all you have to do is turn the arrow while it's still in the fish, and your barbs are going to flip around. So that design is great. I used it quite a bit last season, and it didn't quite meet the standards that I wanted for pulling in fish. So I had a little bit of trouble with this one. So this year I went back to the Muzzy, tried and true for me, and that seems to be working pretty good. But as far as arrow selection goes, the most common is the Muzzy white fiberglass arrow. You can find those anywhere. These arrows that I'm using are the Eastman Outfitter Stingers, and a couple of years ago we got a dozen of these each when we signed up for the Great Lakes Bowfishing Championship. So I was determined to make these work because they're free. So even though the nocks on the end are not compatible with anything I could find anywhere, I'm still determined to make these work until they blow up on me or till I lose them. So
and you just got 2 more of them today.
That's right. We registered today and got 2 more. So these are going to last me a while.
Yep. I'm also shooting the fiberglass arrows. I've experimented some with the Yellow Jacket, which is a carbon and fiberglass. It's got carbon. What would you call those?
Spline?
Yeah, splines through it to help make it a little stiffer. It's supposed to have less flex to it. Now, with that said, I mean, you've seen us shoot a lot of fish on video, and we really haven't had many problems with the standard arrows. Neither of us have tried the carbon arrows yet.
Nope.
The Muzzy carbon arrows look great. I will try them at some point. For me, a white arrow shows up on camera better, so for what we're doing, I like that. And as far as points go, I've been experimenting a lot, just like Rich, and I really like the Muzzy points. The penetrators, the reason that we're not using those now is just because we had so many fish pull off of them. The difference here with the Muzzy is that this barb can flop to the side, and that helps hold the fish better. These penetrators are very rigid, and when you have a hard fighting fish on, like these fish are here at the Great Lakes Bowfishing Championship, they rip their arrow right back out. I started shooting a Muzzy Stingray last year, and I really like the holding power of that Stingray. The reason I have this bow fishing line tied to here is because the stingrays come loose really easy for me, and I found that if I take a piece of line, tie it around the shaft under there, tighten it down, it gives it something to bite on, and then when I shoot, the tip doesn't vibrate loose. So that's how I've made a stingray work for me, and I'm going to be starting with these tomorrow morning in my shoot. I got a couple interlocks. I actually was shooting an interlock yesterday, this Interlock Pro Point, and I dulled it all up already with the rocks, but it's pretty good, pretty happy with it. I did lose a fish, but it was a soft hit, and I'm really excited about these. Okay, Interlock Grapple Point. I'm going to shoot these sometime, but the one downside to this for being in a tournament, obviously the upside is the holding power. The downside is I have to completely remove the tip on this tip here. I have to completely remove it to get the barbs to reverse. So that's going to take me too much time for the situation we're going to be in this weekend. The stingray, just like Rich mentioned with the penetrator point, is I can just turn the shaft to release the fish. I don't have to do the point. So that gives you an idea of what we're using. It certainly doesn't mean that this is the best equipment there is. There may be something else out there we'll find sometime that will say, hey, this is the best thing ever. But that gives you a rundown of what we've tried and what we're using as far as points and shafts go. Rich, spinner versus retriever. Why aren't you using AMS retrievers?
Okay, well, when I started out, like I said, I had this bow in the garage. I also had a small reel in the garage, so I bought a reel setup, or a reel seat that is, with a small fishing pole on there, and that's how I started. And I really enjoy horsing the fish in, just like I'm out fishing. You know, when you got a fish on there, you're just horsing that guy in. I like the feel of that. I have no experience with an AMS, however, Quinn does, so he can tell the difference on that one.
I own an AMS. I decided to try one because it looks like a great system, and it is a great system. However, I am shooting a spinner based on a Zebco 808. Just like Rich said, fighting the fish. I love the fight. AMS specifically says in their documentation, we do not recommend fighting fish with our products. They want you to set your bow down and pull the fish in by hand with the line. Well, that's not my thing. The other thing is that the retrieval system on the AMS for winding the line up isn't as fast for me as it is using my spinner. I can retrieve an arrow on a missed shot a lot faster with my spinner than I can with a retriever. Upside to the retriever is there's no button to push. So every now and then, you know, if we forget to push the button, kapow or ka-snap or something's got to break, either the line or the reel. And I have broken spinner heads in my 808s before. In fact, this 808 I have broken before. However, a new spinner head for my 808 costs about $3. So it's pretty inexpensive to replace. It's an easy part to get a hold of. And for me, the speed wins with the spinner system. For a new shooter, the AMS may be the way to go. There's no button to push. You reel it up, you knock your arrow, you shoot. The other advantage to an AMS is that you've got a lot less drag on your line as it's coming out. My arrows seem to fly easier with the AMS system, and maybe faster and hit the fish harder because of that. But I'm still not willing to give up that fast retrieve or give up the fight to use that system. So nothing against it. We like the AMS system, but our preference is spinners. Who's the better shot, Quinn or Rich?
Who's the better shot? Well, I think that during bow fishing season, when we're switching from the front to the back, I think Quinn and I are pretty equally matched as far as shooting fish during bow fishing season. But I know for a fact that during archery and deer season, Quinn is a far better archer than myself. He puts in a lot more time than I do, and he can shoot a lot farther than I can, much more accurate. So,
thank you.
Yeah.
My answer to that would be, as far as bow fishing, it all depends on the day. We have some days where one of us is just on and the other one keeps missing, and it might be Rich and it might be me. In fact, last year on the first day of the tournament, we were shooting this particular area. I was on the front of the boat, and I kept missing. And I said, you know what, Rich? Get up front. He's like, no, you haven't had enough time up there. I said, yeah, but this is a team effort at this tournament, and you're hitting everything, and I'm really struggling today. So Rich went back in the front, and that's just the way it goes. Some days he shoots better than I do. Some days I shoot better than him. So
That's true.
Okay. This was a statement, not a question, but we'll address it anyway. You're tying the wrong knot on your AMS slides.
Gosh, I didn't bring any string out to show you guys, but I tie mine through a loop through my AMS safety slide that gives me enough gap on the back to pull so that my line is directly behind my arrow. So I think I have better arrow flight when I have it that way. When I make my loop there, I just slide it over the end, slide it through the entire thing. When it comes out, it looks just like that. So that's how I tie mine, because I'm real comfortable with it. If I have an issue with this arrow, breaks or something happens, I will have to cut this line and then retie. But I'm comfortable enough with it to be proficient and quick with it. So that's how I do mine.
And what this statement is referring to is the AMS knot. And there's some other people out there who've done some really good videos on YouTube that you can look at if you want to learn how to tie an AMS knot. I've actually got one on right now. This is fine for me to a point. The idea is that you're able to put your line put your line onto your slide and remove it from your slide without ever having to cut your line. And on a day where I have a lot of patience, taking it off works for me. But when we're in a situation like this where we're shooting this tournament, my mindset is different, and I'm in a race. When I'm in a tournament, I'm in a race. And for me, if I've blown all the way through the fish, I'm pulling out my Swiss Army knife, I'm cutting this line, and I'm doing 2 overhand knots right back onto this thing as fast as I can so that I can shoot again. I do agree with the concept of having the line directly behind the arrow. And I like the idea of being able to take it off, put it back on without having to cut the line. But that's not going to happen this weekend. So this is the majority of the bow fishing video that we shoot is from this tournament. And if you see us tying a knot, just remember that's how we do it. And we do it different times. So I personally don't feel there is a wrong knot that can be tied as long as you're getting the fish and your knot didn't come undone. Who cares?
Right.
So
there you go.
What cameras are you using, and why aren't you using a GoPro?
Well, I did a little research. Quinn showed up one day with a helmet cam, and I thought, what a great idea to get your point of view of what you're shooting at, what you're looking at, no matter what you're doing, whether it be out for archery, deer, or bow fishing. So I did a little bit of research, and what met my needs was the Drift HD 1080p. The primary reason I purchased this is because it has a remote, and I strap my remote on my bow so that I can hit record or stop, and it's pretty quick and easy for me right there. During archery season, I actually have that on my wrist, and I use it when I'm shooting deer out that way. Also on this, I have a few options for changing down to a 1080 from 1080 down to a 720. And then you can up the frames per second up to 60 frames per second. So I really like the LCD screen that's on the outside too, because I reference that quite a bit to see what kind of video that I did get, and if I need to reshoot something, that's pretty handy right there. So that's why I chose the Drift HD. So
yep. And the one downside to the Drift?
The one downside to the Drift is a pretty major downside. You have to have the external mic hooked up all the time if you want to do any commentary, if you want to do any talking when you're using this Drift HD, because the internal microphone is actually covered. It makes it waterproof, but it sounds really muffled and you can barely understand what people are saying. So that's the big downside. Another plus that I forgot to mention is you can spin the lens, so you can mount this at any angle and you can spin the lens to keep it centered and to the top. So that was my choice.
I like the Drift a lot. I think the Drift is a great camera. If you guys haven't seen it yet, check out our video, 29th Great Lakes Bowfishing Championship, because a ton of footage from that video is from both Rich's drift camera and my Contour camera. I'm currently using the Contour GPS. I started using the Contour HD a few years ago and then changed to the GPS when it came out. Like Rich's drift, I have a rotatable front lens, so right now I have the camera tipped on its side, but the lens is straight up and down. I also like to angle my mount so that as I'm looking behind my bow, boom, you're right behind the bow getting to see the footage. The Contour can shoot 1080p or 720. I've been shooting 720 at 60 frames per second. And the reason I went with the Contour over a GoPro and the drift was I found some videos that compared the low light footage. And we use our cameras not only for bow fishing, but also in the white-tailed deer woods. And most of the deer that we see, I mean, come on, it's low light situations when those deer are coming by. I mean, it's not very often that it's 9, 10 o'clock in the morning when you've got getting your camera footage, I mean, it's right at the crack of day or right at last light. So I really like the Contour. The Contour has an excellent microphone in it. We get excellent mic pickup with this camera. And Contour has literally a gazillion mounting options for their products. So Rich has the remote. I like the remote. Contour doesn't have that, but what they do have is this nice slider switch. And if it's forward, it's recording. And if it's in the rear position, it's not recording. So I power it on. I run it with an external battery pack so I can leave it on all day long. And all I got to do is reach up, flip, shoot the fish. So we've had really good luck with the cameras that we're using. As far as the camera that we're talking at right now, we're looking at a Canon HF S200. It's one of the upper prosumer type cameras, and the reason that we're using small gear is because when we're in a self-filming situation like this, it has to be portable, it has to be small, it has to be able to fit in with all the other stuff that we need. I mean, I could go out and buy a much larger, higher quality camera, but am I going to be strapping that camera onto my lone wolf climber that I'm taking on my back while I ride my mountain bike out a 2-track into the woods to bow hunt? No, I'm not, because it's going to get beat up. Right. And if I run small gear, I have more options on what I can do with it, and I'm more likely to have it with me. And if I have it with me, I can get footage. So,
yep. All
right. When will you make a nighttime bow fishing video?
Whew. That's a good question. Currently, with the bow fishing boat that I have set up, I've got everything set up for daytime fishing. I don't know. A lot of guys go out with generators and lights hooked on the front, and we have generators when we could do the light thing, I guess. But I see enough fish during the day that we can fill a barrel with, and I just haven't had. I haven't taken the opportunity, I guess, to set up the boat. I don't know if I have a boat that I want to set up for night fishing anyway.
Right.
So, yeah.
Right. Neither of us own that boat yet that we want to sink a bunch of money into building a cool raised platform with a light system and all that.
Yeah.
We've had some people who've contacted us, and if you're one of them, thank you. We've had people who've contacted us and invited us and said, hey, come out on my boat at night sometime. I'll show you what it's all about. We've kept your contact info. It's important to us, and hopefully we can make that work sometime. And if we do that, maybe we can roll some film on that. But nighttime, low light footage with cameras is hard to capture. There's a whole nother level of difficulty that comes into getting good footage in the dark. So even with good lights, it would be tough. Maybe sometime we'll do it. We haven't crossed it off and said, no, we're not. Hey, there's the guys in the green van. And we'll leave it at that. Hopefully we can do it sometime. But we like filming in the day. We really enjoy what we're doing, and we like being able to show you guys everything of what's around, So on the topic of boats, bows, and cameras, somebody made this excellent post. One suggestion might be to include what costs or trade-offs you're making in the choice of camera equipment versus the boat and bows. This would be great info for those of us on a budget.
Well, like Quinn had mentioned before, we like to stay mobile. And we like to film what we're doing out there, So we like to put out there some of the experiences that we have when we're out there. So I chose to put some money into some camera equipment, and instead of one of them fancy boats, I guess, if you will. So that was my choice. So I can bring some of this experience out there to you guys. So
Right, it's a creative outlet. It's a personal choice of let's say maybe even call it a hobby or a personal interest. I like creative stuff. I've done creative projects my whole life. So the money that I have wrapped up into gear to film, could I put that into better equipment? Well, sure. You could always redirect what you put your money into. I think that at this point, we try to keep our purchases for camera equipment at the same level as we would for anything else. We're always looking for deals. We're always looking to be frugal with our money. Sure. Even this camera that we're talking at right now, I didn't pay full price for. I got it on a substantial sale when new models were coming out. So I'm always watching for bargains. We do make a trade-off. We could redirect some of that into a different boat setup, but we're doing this because this is the direction that we've chosen to go with our outdoor interests.
Right.
So for a little more on that topic of great for those of us on a budget, if you get a chance, check out our other video that we put together called Bowfishing on a Budget. And we address a lot of the costs and ways that you can save money if you're at a position where you are just getting interested in bow fishing and want to get the equipment and get out there and do it, but you don't know that you're going to like it, so you don't want to spend a lot. We've got some good ideas for you. In fact, to wrap it up with this, we just met a young gentleman tonight who's been contacting me on YouTube, and he has wanted to take that approach and get going himself. He found some equipment, he got into it, and finally got his dad to go out with him for the first time now, and his dad's into it, and they're both at this tournament now. So I think that's great. I'm glad that we're able to help out. We don't have all the answers. We're not saying that we're experts by any means, but this is something that we've been doing for a while, and we enjoy it, and we're happy to share it with you. So I guess we'll wrap this one up. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.